Hey guys, today we will talk about COVID-19. This is part two of the series that I'm making. Uh, Specifically, we will talk about what it does, what is that disease, and what it does to us, as well as what is our body's immune response. You know, how do we defend against it? How do we attack the virus? First things first, let's get some things out of the way. I know we've been asking Corona to go away. It may be a bad beer, but it is not responsible for this disease. Corona is possibly not the right term you should use. Corona is just like uh, it's just a shape of the virus, right? It's spherical. It's got a like the sun has a corona around it, and there are many kind of coronaviruses. SARS is just one of them. This millennium, there have been three coronaviruses that have infected humans. So corona, we can probably omit that from our vocabulary. SARS-CoV-2. SARS-CoV-2 is the virus which causes the disease COVID-19. SARS stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. The severe seems to be kind of redundant, but I understand why it is there. Um, CoV stands for coronavirus, and 2 because it's a second edition. The first time it came in 2002 November, and that also was a zoonotic virus, and it killed a good number of people, about 10% of the people it affected. So it was a lot more deadlier than this current virus is. But it has got a lot of similarities. Also, both of them seem to have originated from bats, and they are both respiratory viruses, or they hit our respiratory systems mainly. Um, Immune response, I think let's start with the immune response. It would be good to understand what we do in terms of responding to a threat. Okay, like if you think about responses to a threat, most likely, right? If you think about your own house, how do you respond? How do you make sure you don't get robbed? How do you do that? Well, first thing is you defend, right? And you don't necessarily allow the robber to get inside the house, and then you say, I'll fight with the robber. You may be really big, you may be a WWE wrestler, but there will be collateral damage if you let him inside, right? And similarly, our immune system also works the same way. uh, the number one thing that our immune system wants to do is make sure that the virus does not get inside. Okay, and for that you have something called the innate immune system. Okay, which is basically uh, you could split that word into two. So you have the innate. Innate is basically something that you already have. Innate is something that is you have at birth essentially, and we have something called the adaptive immune system, which we will talk about as well. But the crux of this fight with COVID-19 will lie with our innate response to it. The adaptive usually comes when it's a reinfection, when this disease is coming back and it hits you again, and I'll explain that. Well, like I said, defense is they say that it's a best offense. Defense is the best offense. So what do you do? What does our body do? We've got our skin, which is the one of the biggest organs that we have, and it does a wonderful job of keeping pathogens out. So what does the immune system want to do? Is it wants to keep pathogens out. What are pathogens? They're viruses, bacteria, any kind of foreign proteins, anything which doesn't belong to inside your body. And how do you keep that out? Well, number one, you have a skin, right? If it did not, and if it was not part of the defense system, what would happen is anything you touch would be able to absorb into you, which is not a good idea. uh, but you can understand why that is part of the significant part of the defense. uh, our cells lack the receptors to allow this virus to get in the cells on our skin, which is why even if you theoretically, right, if you take a handful of SARS-CoV-2 virus, and as long as you don't have a cut in your hand, it's going to just stay on your hand, and nothing will happen. So of course, that's not a good idea to still take it, but you get the idea. There are other defenses which are innate, which are just passively there, and they make sure that the virus doesn't or anything doesn't get inside. Saliva is one of the things. So typically, where all the viruses can enter, where all bacteria can enter, that's where you have your strongest defense. Okay, so your mouth and nose are, every day you breathe, you know. Thousands of breaths in a day. With every breath you can inhale something which is a pathogen, which is basically a virus, bacteria, parasite, and anything which doesn't belong inside your body. So you've got your saliva, you've got your mucus, you've got nostril hair. All of that is part of your innate system. Now, if something gets past this, gets past your mouth, it can enter, either it can go into your food pipe or your windpipe. Okay, and I'm just going to use generic terms here. Windpipe is basically what belongs to your respiratory system. That's what draws in the air, sends it to the lungs. It can either go there or it can go into your food pipe, which is your stomach. So let's deal with the food pipe part of it. Particularly viruses like the SARS-CoV-2, the R stands for respiratory virus, but it can also create havoc inside your GI, gastrointestinal tract. Because the receptors for this particular virus are present there as well. So if the virus has got past the very harsh environment of your stomach, which is also part of, in a way, part of your innate defense, because your stomach has got a very harsh environment, acids and such, and it will break down anything that comes there. But if anything survives the stomach and it can be absorbed by the intestines, then you've got a problem in the intestine. You may have diarrhea, vomiting, nausea, and those kind of things, which are usually typical with anything which have to do with your stomach. Other parts of the innate defense system is also your cilia, which are small hair-like things which are there in your lungs, in your respiratory tract, which basically just move like that. And if they find any kind of foreign object, they try to send it back out. So it's, and again, the thing that you should be doing is try and help your immune system. Of course, it makes sense. The cilia can be severely damaged if you're smoking, so you would lose one barrier, against the immune system. Similarly, other things could affect, your innate immune system. Like if you've got cuts on your hand, of course, then you get easy access to the bloodstream, and the pathogens could enter your body very easily. The other ways that your innate system could be a little bit down is in the winters, particularly if it's very cold, and if there is less, I would say, humidity in the air, right? Then your mucus membrane, which is there inside your mouth and nose, that may become a little bit thin, and whatever pathogen or whatever is there, it may have easy access to the cells below that, which is why most colds usually happen in winter. Um, could be one of the reasons why that happens. So, other than the defense part of it, there is also an offense part of the innate system, and that's where most likely our battle with COVID-19 will begin. But like I said, you should always try and make sure that the robber doesn't enter the house. There's no point trying to get into a fight inside your house, because the only collateral damage that can come from it is to your house. Makes sense, right? Which is why the government, all of the doctors are telling you to stay inside the house and not go out, because that's also a defense, right? The virus cannot come home by itself. You will have to bring it in, and if you reduce the number of chances you give it, then you basically reduce the chances of infection. All right, now let's dive right into the innate defense system. Now let's assume that the virus has got in. What would happen? It would get into your throat. Again, I'm saying throat, uh, generic term I'm using, just before the windpipe inside your nose. It's gone in there, it's gone past the mucus, and now it has hit your cells. Once it's hit your cells, like I said yesterday, there may be that in the other video, part one of the video, this kind of these viruses may try to enter your cells, and as they enter your cells, your white blood cells, which are basically big part of your defense system, they get activated. Your cells send out an SOS saying, "Hey guys, something is not right." Typically, your typical response to this is, two things happen. One, the white blood cells will come in and hold whatever pathogen is there. It will try to eat it. Okay, so imagine if this is the virus uh, particle. There will be a white blood cell which will come in, and they will try to essentially eat this, make it a part of the white blood cell, and then slowly digest it. Uh, this is one part of it. The second part of it is there could be some other cells which come in and take a sample of this particular virus or pathogen, and send it back to your lymph nodes. That's where your headquarters of your defense system. That's where the real killers are waiting. And real by real killers I mean your immune system. There's nothing as big and as bad as your immune system, as you'll find out later. But it basically sends a sample up there and tells these guys, hey, and this is still part of your innate system. It tells them that, you know what, there is this pathogen that has come. What do I do? Do you guys have a response to this? The lymph nodes usually, and that's where the adaptive immune system sits. They usually look at this pathogen and say, "Hey guys, yeah, I think this is a H1N1." Of course, they don't know the names. We have given them names, but hey, if they recognize this as a flu virus, or if they recognize this as a common cold or some other bacterial infection, then immediately response is mounted by the adaptive immune system, and they take over. But if this is a novel virus, which our body or none of our bodies have got used to or have seen in the past, then the adaptive system tells the innate system, no, you are on your own, figure this out yourself. We are not going to get involved in this yet. So then it's up to the innate system to really hold the fort. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. So let's now focus on the innate system. We'll get to the adaptive system in a bit, but that's essentially how the work is, distributed. Now, assuming that this battle is won here, what happens? What symptoms do you develop? Typically, your body doesn't want you to run around. Obviously, right? It doesn't want you to eat like there is no tomorrow. If it's fighting a virus or if it's fighting an infection, it wants all of the available resources to be focused on the fight. So what it tries to do is it tries to make you have loss of appetite as a result of that. You don't want to eat anything. You also have cough. Basically, cough is because there is something foreign in your throat, and your immune system is saying, "Hey, get rid of it." So you cough, and you try to expel it, or you sneeze. Basically, this is a reflex, and your body is trying to get rid of something. It may also induce some amount of fatigue in your body. You may get body pains. Basically, in a way, it's your immune system trying to tell you to slow down, so that we can take all of the resources and put it into this fight that seems to be it could be a big fight. So it's basically trying to slow you down. Another thing that it could do is give you a fever. uh, Basically, your temperature is regulated typically, below 100 degrees is where your body temperature, which is your normal body temperature. These particular responses, when the white blood cells get involved and they figure out that there are pathogens, they send a signal typically to your brain and say, "Hey guys, why don't you increase the temperature a little bit?" What happens with that is it gives an advantage to the white blood cells. to fight the pathogens, because pathogens may not survive that well as the temperature goes up to 101, 102, and so on. So it tries to increase the body temperature, and which is where your symptoms start appearing. Cough or fever, all of these are not directly a result of the virus, but these are a result of your immune system or your innate immune system getting into the fight. They're just warming up for the big fight ahead. So, which is why people are going to check your temperature, particularly when they suspect that there is a SARS virus in your body, is to see if your innate system has woken up. If it has woken up, that means definitely there is a pathogen inside. So that's the cycle of trying to identify that you've got an infection. Okay, so you have fever, you have cough, you have tiredness, fatigue, you generally don't want to eat. All of these could be a sign that your body is fighting an infection. And again, like I said, this is not directly caused by the virus, it's caused by the response to the virus. Okay. There could be other interesting things that happen here. When this white blood cell is taking care of the virus, you may turn around and see there are a million of them. Then what do they do? Now it releases certain kind of cytokines. Certain kind of information is sent out from these blood cells into your to the headquarters, right? We'll call them the headquarters, the lymph nodes, saying that, hey guys, this is big. Okay, we need help, we need more people to come here, we need to fight these guys. There's just too many of them. Okay. And now this, from here, it can actually trigger a chain of responses. Again, like I said, like the fever, it's a response to the pathogen. Now imagine that, and yes, in the other part of this series, part one, you realize that how cells are being damaged by the virus. So at this point, your body may be having a lot of dead cells because viruses are there. There's a lot of dead cells, dead viruses. There's like just dead bodies lying everywhere. So how does your body react to that when the SOS signal is sent? Is it tries to flood the area with water. Okay, pus or whatever you call it, plasma. It sends a lot of water, and that's called inflammation. And you would have seen that happen on your hand. If you've got a cut, you get a bump, you get pus and all of that. That's basically your body sending out a lot of fluids there to clean up that area, to clean up all the dead cells. Okay. If that area is on the top of your skin, then it is good, because then you could drain the all of this inflammation out quite easily. But if that inflammation happens in a place which is with inside your body, uh, it will get a bit tricky. And again, the virus is not really doing it. It's your innate immune system which is actually responding. It's a template response. Like if you write to a bank and say blah blah blah, whatever happened, they respond to you, right, saying, hey, we have received your response, we appreciate your business, etc., etc. It's just a template response. Similarly, our innate system can only do template responses. So they will by default increase the fever, give you a fever, give you a ache, give you a cough, flood the area with water. All of those are what you call template responses. Okay. Because that's the way the innate system works. It's just like a carrying a big hammer with you. If the only tool you have is a hammer, then everything looks like a nail. That's what they say, and that's very true with our innate system as well. Now here's the thing that happens: if things go out of hand, then these guys raise that SOS, and till here it's like a Malayalam movie. Nothing much is happening. Hero is there, villain is there. There's a small fight, little bit of blood here and there, but things are still under control. When these guys send the SOS, you've got these Tamil and Telugu heroes who arrive. Just scorpions flying everywhere. So you've got things that really take a bad turn is when the SOS is sent out by the white blood cells. Then you have got something called your NK cells, which are again part of the innate immune system. NK stands for natural killer cells, your Balakrishna. They come in and they just carpet bomb everything. So Imagine if there is if there is an infection on my hand here and it's just limited to this place. If these guys, cannot take care of them, the first soldiers who reach there, they cannot take care of it and send a SOS, and the big guys come, like the natural killer cells come, they will obliterate the entire area. They don't care. They will kill good cells, they will kill bad cells. They just come and carpet bomb the whole thing. Of course, if the carpet bombing happens, then inflammation increases. And if inflammation increases, more damage happens. And if more damage happens, uh, more of these, uh, more of this information is sent out. SOS is sent out. More of these killer cells come, and it's a cycle which can have devastating consequences. The virus may not even, maybe just like standing to the side and looking, watching the show. Okay, and that happens, and we will try to do the, draw the connection with the SARS virus. Okay, now your adaptive system. Okay, here, like I said before, if the system has fought this virus before, then what it does is it creates an so anything that is coming in is called an antigen. So we spoke about antigen in the other video. So if remember, the innate system took a sample, sent it upstairs to the lymph nodes where the big guys are sitting, the adaptive system is sitting. They sample the antigen and they say, okay, we don't know this guy, we don't know this virus, but what they do is they don't just sit quiet, they create what is called an antibody. The antibody is basically, again, it's like a template here as well. uh, what they do is this part of, the bottom half of it adheres to other white blood cells, and the immune system, what it has to do now is it has to create an antibody, that is, these two, the upper part of the Y's. It has to create that which matches the antigen. So if you've got a SARS-CoV-2 infection and if you win the fight, uh, basically if you stay alive after that, the antibody is going to be created for that particular virus. So if the virus does a re-entry after a couple of weeks, or after a month, after a year, after 10 years, as long as you're alive, the antibodies are going to be present in your body, and then they will take care of basically um, killing the virus even before it starts anything. Okay, so that's how the antibodies work. So which means that adaptive systems, adaptive immune systems typically get into the fight when, the first time around they just lie low, watch what's happening. The second time when this comes in, that's when, before the innate system can really respond, in fact the innate system would have to respond even back. The second time when it happens again, it will catch it, take a sample, send it upstairs, and now the lymph nodes say, hey, I know this guy, I have marked him already. I have got an antibody marker, and I'm going to send this. And these antibody markers are going to come. Antibodies are going to come, sit on all of the antigens around the virus, and mark it for destruction. Okay, and it's going to be quite simple. You may not even know what's happening, and the body takes care of it without any kind of a bloodshed, or without any kind of, pretty much not many symptoms even. It just silently takes care of it. All right. The difference between an innate system and adaptive system. One big thing is the innate system you're born with. When you're born, you do not have any kind of protection against anything other than what the innate system template response. Like I said, give you a fever, try to flush the area. All of that, that's part of the innate system. The adaptive system, which takes care of your flu vaccinations, all of that, they are building on your adaptive system. If you get a fever which is, caused by a flu, then your adaptive system creates an antibody and makes sure that the next time you don't get a severe infection. Okay. All right. So that's the antigen and antibody story. let's quickly talk about the SARS-CoV-2. Um, Here, this virus is a new virus, which is why it's causing kind of a widespread, I wouldn't say destruction, but discomfort at least to a lot of people. As you can understand, it's a new virus. Out of the 7 billion people on this planet, zero people have antibodies for it when it started in December. Today, millions of people have it because they have got the infection once. As you can imagine, this is a new virus. If it was a flu, and if it hits a population of 100 people, so let's say there are 100 people, and if it's a flu, maybe it's possible that 80% already have had the flu. So it's not going to be as dramatic. It will spread from people to people, but 80% of the people will not even realize that they have had the flu. If it's the same strain of flu, they won't even realize that because the adaptive system will take care of it. Which is really why the SARS-CoV-2 virus is causing so much of problem, is because out of 100 people, absolutely nobody has any immunity. So everybody gets into this fight with the virus because the innate system is responding to the virus. It's the first time anyone is seeing it, which is why it's got this kind of a success much better than it's spreading around, at least much better than the flu. One of the reasons is because we don't have a response to it. Okay. Now, what does it do? Well, according to all of the reports that we have, about 80% of the cases, the virus is not doing much, in the sense it just gives you a small bit of cough. Sometimes it doesn't even give you that. Typically, from the time, day zero to about day four, you don't even show any symptoms. And some people don't show symptoms at all. But some people don't show symptoms for another 7 or 8 days. And you know why symptoms are there, because we just spoke about that. Now, it doesn't mean the virus is just sitting there. It is multiplying, except your body hasn't recognized or reacted to that yet. So, day zero, you had one virus that came in. Maybe day four, you have a million viruses that are there, but your body hasn't responded yet. That's all it means by not having symptoms. Which means that if you have the symptom, and if you have the virus not having symptoms, and if you cough, you will definitely spread the virus around, okay, without even having any symptoms. Which is why, even if you take fever of people who are under this in this period, they will not even have a fever, which means that they will be spreading the virus but not have a fever, which is why all of the thermometer checks may be little too little, it may not help at all. Okay, so 80% of the cases, nothing happens. Well, I wouldn't say nothing happens, but your innate system can take care of itself. You don't need hospitalization, you don't need any kind of medicines. Okay, now the 20%, or well, the number is going up now, so let's say 85 and 15% they may require hospitalization. That's where it is going. Out of the 15%, 5% may end up with needing ICU, ventilator, and stuff like that. In fact, there was a report a couple of days ago by the Ministry of Health which said that about 1% of people in India were put on ventilators, of all of the people that were tested positive. But here's the problem with testing positive, okay? 85% of the people are only the people that are tested. Okay, this 100 are the people that have been tested for having the virus. Now, how many of you have got the flu but not gone to the doctor? How many of you have got fever, have got a body pain? Do you go to the doctor every time you get a fever and a body pain? I don't. I don't go to the doctor unless it's like 2 or 3 days. uh, I don't go, and I'm sure there are many people like that. So what I'm saying is that the figure right now, right? The 3 point, I'm not tracking it, but 3.7 million people who have been tested positive. The real number may be 35 million, maybe 10 times that. because most people may not even know that they have the virus, and the body takes care of it. That can happen. So why am I saying that is because this 15% that they say that requires hospitalization is only from this 3.7 million. But if you take this as a number, and if you think about all of the people who got infected, then this percentage will be much lower. Maybe it will be much like 5 or 10% of the people requiring hospitalization. And that is true for flu, that's true for malaria, that's true for every disease. There will be a lot of people who just do not want to go or do not go or just don't show symptoms. And that's very much possible. All right. This is a pretty lengthy video, so I hope I have your attention still, because this part is what is happening to your body. 85% of the people won't even know. 15 and 5% are usually people that have got some other issues. Now, what is this virus doing? Is this virus is actually hitting a receptor in your body called the ACE2 receptor, and we'll quickly go over what happens after that. Where are the ACE2 receptors on what cells? They're usually located in your respiratory tract, they're there in your brain, in your skin, underside, in your blood vessels. They're there in pretty much every place, which is why this virus is now quite successful in infecting, because it's pretty much there in a lot of places. Okay. Now, let's say that you've got this virus. It's in your throat, and you're done with it. Then you may just have cough, and you may be fine. For 15% of the people, what's happening is this particular receptor is there inside your lungs, and it is responsible. It's in a particular very critical cell. All cells are critical, but there is in the respiratory tract a very critical cell which does two functions. One is it does gas exchange. We've spoken about gas exchange, taking in oxygen, leaving out carbon dioxide. So it will hit that function. It will basically, for those 15% of people, they may develop something where they cannot do the gas exchange properly. And there is also this ability of that particular lung to hold itself without collapsing. That's also being taken care of by that cell. Now, imagine there is a viral infection happening there in that cell, which is responsible for gas exchange, but your innate immune system has done the template response and it has triggered inflammation there, pus, and all of the water leakage, right? Then what's going to happen? Yeah, you're going to have a problem because now your lungs are going to flood with water. Not a good idea. Lungs and water usually don't go well. That's called a pneumonia. Quickly, if your body recovers at that stage, some of people may require oxygen. Typically what they do is they put something on your finger to measure how much of oxygen is there in your blood. If that is dropping, they give you oxygen. They also see if you are not able to breathe properly, shortness of breath, labored breathing, or you're breathing like really, really quick. I mean, you've seen them. I've seen them. The breathing is really a difficult procedure for them. So that's typical of all pneumonia. Pneumonia can be bacterial, viral as well. But you understand why it's happening. It's happening because your innate system is done a template response there. 5% of the people, it may go much further into something called ARDS, which is again respiratory distress. Here, your lungs have collapsed, are filled with water, plus you've got other problems. Like now, your oxygen levels in your body have come down. Okay, because they've come down, but if your organs need to function, they need oxygen. So your body will now start, or your heart rate will start going up because there is less of oxygen. So to supply more, it needs to send more blood there. So it will send more blood, and the only way you can do that is by increasing your heart rate. So your heart rate may go up. There may be other things that happen. This inflammation may get carried away into your bloodstream. Once it gets into your bloodstream, it may cause other, your blood vessels to start leaking. There may be other problems. Your liver, if you've got, particularly now at this stage, if you've got other problems like hypertension, chronic obesity, COPD, that's pulmonary distress, already you've got a problem with your lungs. If you've got heart problems, if you've got liver problems, you're on dialysis, uh, diabetes, if you've got any of these problems, then you can imagine that now your immune system is trying to fight two or three battles, plus it's going to create havoc on your inflammation. So it's going to send your entire body into a toss. Usually at that stage, some people may require ventilator support. That's where usually they give you a anesthesia, put a tube inside, and then there's a mechanical breathing that happens from outside. It pumps the blood. There's a machine that pumps oxygen into your body. That could happen, and usually 40-50% of the people don't recover from that. By then, they go down. It's like a dominoes. It just goes down, and things escalate from there. So that's really how people lose the battle to SARS. But it can happen mostly to elder people. Why it could happen to elder people is because older people will have other health problems like hypertension, like all of the things that I just said. But the good news, however, I know it doesn't look like much, but the good news here is that it doesn't happen to that many people. If you have other problems, like I just said, and if this piles on to that, then your adaptive, your immune system will kill you essentially. Well, the virus kills you, but it triggers the immune system into killing you. But for most people, and this number of 15-20%, 15% requiring hospitalization, in that 10% will be okay, and the 5%, part of this 15%. So essentially we're talking about 10% of the people here requiring hospitalization but making out, 5% requiring serious medical intervention, out of which about 3% are dying. But that number, as we go along, will drop, and it will come down to 1% or somewhere. Why? Because of this number that will increase. The overall denominator will increase as our testing goes up and all of that. More people go to the hospital, that number will increase. But here's a good thing about contagious diseases. If a disease is incredibly good at killing people, imagine if it kills 85% of the people, okay, then it will not be that contagious. Why? Because you're just killing, the virus is killing you before you have had the chance to infect other people. Okay, so if a virus has to be very contagious, typically if it has spread to millions of people, then it has to be less deadly. If it is more deadly, it will not be as contagious. That's usually the norm for all of the contagious diseases. Okay, I think that's all I have for today. I know it's a long video, but it was necessary. I hope that you understood pretty much what's happening in your body. We will talk about treatments and vaccinations in the next video. But this part of it, I hope that I've been able to convey to you what is actually happening. In summary, what I've understood from all of the information that's available is your body takes care of it most of the time. Okay, but don't bring the fight into the house. It's a no-brainer. Don't you never know when you become part of this 1%, right? You could be that 1%. You could be that like in the movies, they switch off the light, they take out the stethoscope and say, that's it, there's no more, right? You could be that person. It doesn't matter if you're 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old. You don't know what you're dealing with. You just don't want to take the chance, even if it is 1%, right? Why to take the chance? So always trust the rule of defense. Okay, so stay away from people. If they're wearing a mask, you also wear a mask, then that cuts down the infection dramatically by 95-99%. So there itself, you will make sure that it doesn't enter your body in the first place. Then if it doesn't enter your body, you don't have to find out what happens to you. Okay, so with that, I will close here. Thank you for your time, and I will meet you hopefully with the next video, which will be a little bit shorter, where we talk about what are the doctors doing to contain this disease. All right, bye bye.